Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Last go around we did a read through of a video game magazine that was very near and dear and nostalgic to me, and this time around going to be talking about something that we haven't really ever discussed as much between this channel and the Fans of Power channel. Professional wrestling, another thing that's near and dear to my heart, another passion, something I still keep up with to this very day. I got to thinking about it on the drive home from work, trying to think about why, after all this time, I still enjoy professional wrestling. And honestly, I can't give you a complete straight answer on that. There's just something about it, I guess. Watching it as a kid, and then of course evolving from being terminology here, a mark, to a smart mark. Once you get the internet and start to learn the inner workings of everything, you become more critical, and you kind of lose that that childlike luster to it. Now, granted, there are people that I know that still watch wrestling and still look at it the same way as I looked at it as a kid, but I can't do that anymore. It's hard for me to not watch stuff and think about, oh, this is where this is heading, or guessing this, and most of the time getting it right, because it cycles around. Kayfabe is dead, of course, after all. But we're going to be taking a look at WCW Magazine December 1991, which, saving the image, is an interesting thing about it. When we get to the back cover, I don't know how early these hit newsstands back then, because this says December 91, but when we get to the end of this issue, there's an advertisement for Halloween Havoc. So I'm assuming that it's at least 2 months that this would have been on newsstands in October leading up to Halloween Havoc. I can't remember how that works, or if that's how most publications ran. I seem to not remember it that way. But without any further ado, let's get into this thing. We got newly inducted Hall of Famer Lex Luger on the cover of this one. A new advisor, a new attitude, and a new title, which we will get to with his new advisor and who he's paired up with. And also, I have no recollection of Mr. Hughes being with him around this time. But 91, I'd say late 91 into probably about 96, the vast majority of these littler things that are going on, I don't quite remember. Like, after this, Vader's going to come into WCW and wreck shop and take the championship. Ron Simmons will beat him down the line, and that was a pretty cool moment. So I remember bits and pieces and things of significance, but there's going to be a lot of stuff that we'll look at, and I will be like, yeah, I don't remember that from back then. And also, I just wanted to show WCW some love. Wearing my vintage Raven shirt, which I think I got this at either a house show, but I want to say it was a WCW Thunder taping back in 1998. I know professional wrestling is not everyone's thing, but doing video games, doing wrestling, I just want to mix it up quite a bit. But we have Lex Luger here on the cover. He is the new champion. Ric Flair at this point is already, he's already on WWF television. He's about to win the Rumble here. If this is December 91, he goes to win the Rumble in 92. So we have the enforcers from A to Z, Anderson and Sabisco's Dictionary of Rule Breaking, a Johnny B. Bad. He's oh so bad. And the Third Degree with Scott Steiner. I only had a few issues of WCW Magazine. Let me go ahead and do this too. I had a few issues of WCW Magazine as a kid. Unfortunately, the one I wanted to cover, I wasn't able to find scans of. So we're just going to have to settle with this. But of course, the phone number that has always been stuck in my brain forever and will continue to do so, 1-900-909-9900. Mean Gene Okerlund always plugging that when he entered the company in late 93. Yeah, I think it was Starrcade, maybe somewhere around there, 93. And then, of course, we get Hulk Hogan showing up in mid 94. But the hotline always remained the same. So on Sundays, we have Missy Does Mail. On Monday, we have Tony Schiavone Talks. Tuesday, 900 Matt Watch with Steve Beverly. Wednesday is Late Breaking News with Dennis Brent. Thursday, Straight Up with Sting. Friday, Lex on the level. I almost messed that up what I was saying. And Saturday, of course, we get the Jim Ross report. Do they say, yes, of course, children under 18 must obtain parental permission before calling. Now, listen to this. Cost is $2 for the first minute and 45 cents for each additional minute. I never called any of these hotlines because I knew that my parents would kill me. So I just didn't do it. And I think it was one time. I want to say my dad saw me watching TV and saw some sort of hotline. It could have been this. He said, "Do not call that. You will get a whipping." So I didn't do that. But now the summer is hotter than ever. So I'm all over the place. It's December 91. It's going to advertise Halloween Havoc for October. And now the summer is hotter than ever. So maybe they should have changed the title to that. All right, on to our contents. And I'm not going to read all of this, but we got a lot to cover here. So January issue on sale November 5th. All right, so answers my question. You get two months in advance. So this would have hit newsstands. That's, I guess, the first week in October, whatever days. I don't know if that would have been a Tuesday or Friday or anything. Not sure. I guess we could have looked back here on the calendar and seen exactly what day it was. So there's a note. To me, the main question raised by Bob Smith's story on Lex Luger is this: why does Lex Luger feel he requires the presence of Harley Race and Mr. Hughes to be successful? We'll read the story to find out. I don't think there's senior editors Bill Apter, which is interesting because Bill Apter, of course, heavily involved with PWI. So I don't know the inner workings of this magazine from back in this time, but it's funny to see Bill Apter's name written in there. Paul E., of course. We get Paul Heyman as Paul Dangerously, Flamboyant, Freddie Fargo, Missy Hyatt, Jim Ross, Schiavone, Gordon Soley. So some recognizable names and some others not so much. Speaking of which, PWI, I kind of wonder if this is a thing. Bill, after being an editor, he's like, hey, let's put an ad for PWI in here. PWI, of course, more of the kayfabe magazine, really. That it's especially as the Monday Night Wars would escalate PWI very much. And I mean, all of these magazines throughout their runs stuck to kayfabe, though some would blur the lines a little bit. But PWI was always very much concentrated on kayfabe, and I didn't do research here, but I want to say PWI still exists in print form. I know they do the 500 wrestlers, and I think they started doing the women rosters now, and the wrestlers kind of make a big deal about it. Some make fun of it. And I guess that's the whole thing too with Dave Meltzer and his star ratings. People take that to heart, or people don't care at all and say he's full of shit. Get a lot of that with, it's similar, but not as much. People really hating on Meltzer lately. One thing I wanted to say too, I picked WCW because WCW, between that and WWF as a kid, my preference was WCW, but I watched them both because when it comes to wrestling, there's no tribalism with me. When the Monday Night Wars were going on, I'm flipping back and forth between Nitro and Raw. And not only that, when I got a television that had picture-in-picture, I would have one screen on that and have the picture-in-picture on the other. And then if I would just watch them both. And if something caught my eye here, I would just switch, and it would switch the screens. So same for today. People are very much really WWE and hate AEW and vice versa. I just like wrestling. So I like things from each company. I think both companies do stuff that I think sucks, but it's wrestling and the business is healthy. And that's the important thing to me, because having that monopoly for so long was terrible for the business. So now that people have more places to work and more places to go if they're on the independents and want to get recruited and make more money and get signed and all that, they have options now. And I think that's fantastic. But I'm going to wrap up a look at the most recent happenings in and around World Championship Wrestling. So we'll kind of check out some of this. Abdullah the Butcher and Sting. When Sting unwrapped a package that was supposedly left for him by the fans, Abdullah the Butcher stormed out of the box and savagely attacked the Stinger. I was afraid of Abdullah the Butcher as a kid. He bled all the time, and he just he scared me. He looked gross. And it says here, let's see. They're kind of plugging the magazine. As Sting removed the ribbon, the box exploded with the force of none other than the infamous 465-pound Abdullah the Butcher. Proceeded to pummel the surprise Stinger. But the Abdullah incident was just the beginning, as surprises have continued to come at Sting from all directions. It's getting real hard to concentrate on my matches, Sting told me. But I don't know who's gonna come after me next. So keep watching the WCW broadcast because you don't know. Barry Windham joins Ron Simmons in threat against common enemies. So who are these guys going against? Barry Windham lost to Lex Luger at the Bash, which was in Baltimore. They stayed in Baltimore for the Great American Bash for a long time. I would have to go back and check and see if there was a Great American Bash that wasn't in Baltimore. I guess Wyndham and Ron Simmons are going to go against Hughes and Luger at some point. Brian Pillman reinstated. Due to the vast amount of mail that has flooded WCW offices, asking that Brian Pillman be reinstated. The WCW Board of Directors, what have they done? Decided to do exactly that. I heard the good news. Telephone flying Brian. I appreciate Yellow Dog making my bookings for me. I understand he's going to Japan now. Wish him luck. Oh, okay. I would have to think about what happened here, but from what I'm gathering, Pillman was under the hood as Yellow Dog for whatever reason. I know that he would turn heel not too mumuch longer after this, and him and Jushin Thunder Liger would have a decent battle over the, I don't think it was called the Cruiserweight title back then. I think they called it like the Light Heavyweight Championship, and then Brad Armstrong would get the upset over Pillman, and that's when he would turn heel. I think someone, if you're really into wrestling and you're watching this and you're like, that's wrong, please comment down below. Let me know. If you're joining me live on this at some point and you're just put in the chats like, no, you were wrong about this. Thomas Rich, newest York Foundation member. So yeah, Tommy Rich. The York Foundation was so silly because we have Miss Alexandra York, who would later be, most know her by Terry Runnels, but she would come to the ring. Terry Taylor was a part of this. She would come down with a laptop and she would do analytics during the matches, or she had all the analytics for his opponent and knows all of his stuff. And there's all these percentages. And they always try to put it over. And watching it back now in present day, it's hilarious. News briefs. The WCW Light Heavyweight Championship Tournament is now in progress. Yes, don't miss a moment of all the exciting action. So yeah, the Light Heavyweight title is going to come into play here, and then it'll be Pillman and Liger, and then Brad Armstrong and Pillman. Over time, Harley Race has been referring to Lex Luger as the ultimate package. After catching negative vibes from Stunning Steve, Johnny B. Bad has decided to stay away from Lady Blossom. So yeah, Steve Austin is relatively new to the company around this time too. You gotta love the Stunning Steve's tights. Always kind of loved his pastels on black and everything. And it's so funny looking back at all this stuff, because if you look at this photo right here, so we have Tom Zink, the Z-Man. We have Dustin Rhodes, who other people may know as Gold Dust. Dustin, of course, still wrestling to this day. And then we have Big Josh, who I remember coming to the ring with a bear, and he was there for a bit of time, and then he would leave here and go on to be Doink the Clown. And the first iteration of Doink the Clown, WWF. I think after that, it would be Steve Lombardi and the Brooklyn Brawler that would take over the mantle. So we have Fan Jam. Oh, boy. I'm not going to read everything, because if I do that, we'll be here forever. Our new format, I've been a WCW fan for about 6 years. I have to say that WCW Magazine is the greatest thing to hit the Federation since Sting and Lex Luger. Love your articles on the Steiners, Hardliners feud. Everyone's gunning for the Steiners. There's so much to read. The photos are great, and I can't wait for the next issue. So I'm assuming they're talking about this one here with the Steiners and Elegante, Giant Gonzalez, who James was trying to remember at some point. This isn't just them readers blowing smoke. Oh, hey, there's someone that wrote in from Roanoke. I never miss an issue of wrestling wrap-up in the past. I'm certainly not going to miss an issue of WCW Magazine now with all your new features like Out and About and Front Row Ringside and the puzzle pages. We'll get to that shortly. The Sting article, The Many Faces of Sting, was fascinating. Your interview with Richard Morton. So Ricky Morton, I think, what's his face? Because of rock and roll. Yeah, rock and roll. I almost want to say Midnight. I would always get them confused. But Ricky Morton would turn and join the York Foundation. It was just not good. I remember that being not good at all. So it's just them blowing some smoke. That's pretty much like, your magazine's great, but here's Sting beating up Nikita Koloff. And I would say is a strap match. I would say dog collar, but it's not around their necks, but it's a chain. So figure that one out. Let's go to the next page here. More fan jam stuff. There we go. There they are. The Rock and Roll Express in Happier Times. Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. Robert Gibson, unfortunately, his eyes have always been that way. But yeah, Ricky would turn on Robert, join the York Foundation. It was awful. It just didn't. Ricky as a heel makes no sense. Never met these guys, but I've seen them locally at shows I've been to before and at conventions I've been to before, and seem like great guys. Yeah, we won't. It's just them blowing smoke. Your magazine's really great, so we'll skip that. WCW Front Row Ringside, up close and personal. A recent card at the Burn Meadowlands Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey, featured a special event autograph session that included Sting, Missy Hyatt, and PN News. And saving these images, there's going to be, I think there's a little bit of an article about PN News and One Man Gang, which is interesting. I was into PN News as a kid. Couldn't tell you why. And it's the same thing that I racked my brain about why I like wrestling to begin with. I look back when I was a kid and it's like, why did I only like these guys because the TV told me I should like them, or did I just like them because I thought they were cool? I think PN News may have been one of those instances where the TV told me that they were cool, because I don't remember him wrestling that well at all. As I got older, I tended to like wrestlers based off of their finishing moves, some whatever they would do in the ring if it was pretty cool, and then of course the interviews, the promos that they would do. And through that, I kind of shifted from this time period from being a big Sting, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan fan to more of like Mr. Perfect, Jake Roberts, those guys, because I really appreciated all around what they did. It's like with Hogan and Warrior, the promos, Warrior's entrance, shaking the ropes is all really awesome and stuff. But once that bell would ring, the older I would get, the more I'd be like, this match is not really doing anything for me. And I couldn't really figure out what that was as much as a kid. And then, of course, as you get older and you get smarter and you start reading the internet too much, especially the message boards back in the 1998 and 99, then you really start to I went from personalities more towards like work rate. And so I really like the cruiserweights. They weren't cutting promos back then, not most of them anyway. But have you heard? Here's the 10 hot topics that are keeping WCW fans talking this month. Halloween Havoc. The pressure's on for Lex Luger as he squares off against Ron Simmons. The light heavyweights, the high-flying aerial tactics, and impressive scientific skills are the hallmark of this new division. And it really was back then, because most of the stuff that they were doing was, holy shit. Nowadays, it's a little bit harder to impress, and I don't want to I want to sound like Jim Cornette or all those other guys that rag on AEW all the time, but I do understand their point of the lack of psychology, like doing a bunch of really cool shit, but if they're not selling specific stuff after the fact or whatever, then it kind of diminishes that. I'm kind of right now in the mindset of I'm getting tired of multiple finishers being used every match, having them kick out of all of those every match. Seems like everything wants to do that, especially on bigger shows like WrestleMania last weekend, for example. Most of those matches had them doing their finishers, kick out, kick out, kick out, and I would much rather see surprise roll-up pins or something else be a finish that's not their finisher, to be, oh, okay, wasn't expecting that. And then also on commentary, he's got it, he's gonna do it, or she's gonna do it, she's got this one, she's won the title. I'm like, all right, well, they're gonna kick out because you said that on commentary. But anyway, I'm gonna kind of rant a little bit about modern wrestling as we're going through this. But back then, the stuff that the light heavyweights were doing would wow everybody. Even if you go back and watch it now, most of that stuff is still pretty impressive. But if you're desensitized to how athletically wrestlers have evolved to today's standards, you might watch that now and be like, that's nothing. But back then it was special, especially when you're seeing all those big bloated up dudes that get blown up 5 minutes in the match, and it's just punches and kicks and like a hip toss and a body slam. Seeing what they were doing was incredible. Two big questions for Sting: who's inside the box and who's behind the scheme? Well, I think they already answered who was in the box. Barry Windham's new attitude, finally all that skills being put to good use. So that's when Barry Windham has his face turn. He's faced for a good while. I remember watching WCW around this time, and Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes were big highlights for me, especially Barry Windham, because I want to say, oh man, it was one of the weekend shows. The main event was Barry Windham versus Stunning Steve for the TV title, and he won it, I want to say, and then Steve won it back not too much longer after that. But I remember as a kid watching that and being really, really excited for him. Big Barry Windham mark around that time. Bill Kazmaier, Strong and How. Man, who did he? I'd have to Google him because I feel like they gave him some other gimmicks too, or he wasn't there that long. I can't remember what it was. Wasn't he like the strong man or something? Let's look him up real fast. Bill Kazmaier. Yeah, pro lifter. That's what it was. He was a strong man. Yeah. Let's go to his professional wrestling career here. Okay, so he entered in 86 with a WWF match in Calgary. Summer of 91, received several shots at Lex Luger, but failed to win. Teamed with Rick Steiner. I'm assuming this is when Scott was injured, because you saw there in the contents he had that brace on. Lost to the Enforcers in the tournament final. Oh, they lost in the tournament final for the tag titles at Halloween Havoc. That would be happening a few weeks after this hits. Starrcade 91 Battle Bowl. Him and his partner Jushin Liger defeated DDP and Mike Graham. And then he wrestled for New Japan for a bit. So I think I remember him. He had like USA kind of stars and stripes tights. They're like, yeah, he's a big, strong guy. There we go. Let's send the bot. Yeah, there we go. I think though he would wear these and then also wear a singlet at some point too. Who we got down? Who's that? Is that Scotty Riggs? Super Patriots. Oh no, Chip the Firebreaker and Private Todd Champion who quickly established himself. Oh boy. Yeah, he was the firefighter. Oh my God. Yeah, that was awful. New York Foundation, Terry Taylor, Ricky Morton, Thomas Rich. The return of Harley Race, Ron Simmons, and Cactus Jack. Yeah, Cactus Jack getting his big break in WCW. He'd be there for a few years and then ship out to be Mankind. Front row ringside. Who am I? How many clues do you need to make the correct guess? Test your friends. Answers on page 17. So let's see if I can get this. Former Mr. Minnesota bodybuilding champion. My drop kick is generally considered one of the very best in the sport. My nickname derives from the fact I often utilize the sleeper hold as a finishing maneuver. Formed a tag team with Brian Pillman in 1990. Together we captured the U.S. tag team title on a tournament. After flying, Brian and I went our separate ways. I captured the World TV title. I want to say it's the Z-Man. I think, because he's from the Minnesota area. We'll find out on page 17. Pillar to post. Stunning Steve. The pleasure, fans, is all yours. Consider that, yeah, and this was kind of crazy to think about. He only started his career in 1990. So for this to be the end of 91, he's already there and featured prominently on television, tells you everything you need to know. He's destined for greatness. Unfortunately, Eric Bischoff did not see the greatness in him when he was still there and let him go, and the rest is history. So there he is with what's her face? They alluded to her on a couple pages back, but I don't remember her being with him that long. I remember Medusa being with him more so than her. Oh, there's Brian Pillman, the flying dog. Yellow, whatever. Yellow dog is what it was. That's right. This gimmick was often like Dusty Rhodes did it, Hogan did it as Mr. America, but I honestly don't remember the yellow dog. So I don't know why he got suspended there. Yeah, see, look how terrifying Abdullah is. So this has got to be, is this still Austin talking about everything, or was he talking about? I wouldn't read it all, but like I said, we'd be here forever. I like to ask Big Josh how he keeps in shape. So Big Josh says, as often as possible, I hike in the woods with my axe and chop a few cords of wood. Nothing better for you than chopping wood. Works out the arms, back, the shoulders, and keeps your lungs healthy too. And with all the working out that I do, all my friends have plenty of firewood for the winter. So you got to stay in character for that. Oh, boy. If you have a question for any WCW star, send it to What's do you remember for a brief time there was a wrestler named Battle Cat? I do, but not a whole lot. I remember the attire, but that's about the extent of it. There's a Z-Man. Take that, Diamond Stud. Diamond Stud is Scott Hall. How do you like this, Diamond Stud? Tom Zink seems to be asking as he strolls to the ring, accompanied by a bevy of beautiful women. Yeah, I saw a little display. Stud told WCW Magazine, there's only one thing that Z-Man forgot to tell you, and that's the fact that those bimbos are cast off from yours truly. Could any of them be a Diamond Doll or a potential Studette? Brother, they couldn't even make the first cut. I want to say Diamond Stud as well was being introduced by DDP. So they had the stud stable, and DDP, of course. I remember my cousin and I watching, I think it was Starrcade Battle Bowl. So there's a match where there's the Freebirds, and I can't remember who they're wrestling, but DDP comes out. I think maybe DDP comes out with them. And the entire time he's cutting his promo, he's just like, good God. Like over and over, he would say a sentence, good God. And we would mock him and make fun of him for it. That was funny. Like DDP at that time was already in like his early 30s. Didn't really start wrestling until then either. So still time for you guys out there if you want to get into the business. Missy's View, which Missy Hyatt, I had a big crush on her back then. When I hear my alarm clock go off in the morning, I like to turn it off, stretch, and go back to sleep for another hour. I guess Sting never learned that good things come in small packages, like diamonds and rubies. You know, interviewing someone in the locker rooms is one thing, but invading their privacy by breaking in on them in the showers, why, that's just as well as stinks. Wonder what Mr. Hughes' voice sounds like. So this is just rambling thoughts from Missy. Later, y'all. Yeah, that was funny. She had a big Southern drawl to her program guide, so you can keep up to date. So the Power Hour, Saturday mornings at 9:05, and then World Championship Wrestling, Saturday evenings at 6:05. They haven't started calling WCW Saturday night yet. WCW main event on Sundays. And, of course, you get Pro, Worldwide, main event in Canada. So the big markets like Chicago, New York would always get other shows too, in addition to this. But for me, this was it for me as a kid. This is what the weekends were. And occasionally Clash of the Champions, of course. And those would come on during the week. I want to say it was Thursdays most of the time those came on. But yeah, Power Hour, Saturday night, and then main event were my go-tos. Let's see. Yeah, I guess so. WCW was shown on Sky Sports Monday nights at 1900 hours and Tuesday nights at 22. So 10 o'clock on Tuesdays, and then it was 7 o'clock on Mondays, and then Saturdays at 5. Interesting. And there's the listings for all you Canadians out there. Superstar Stat Pack. Look at this. Was always an interesting thing too, looking at close-ups of the foreheads of wrestlers. So you can see how much they've bladed over the years. So we got beautiful Bobby, who I guess that's one thing I didn't mention here, flipping through this, is I didn't want to make a point to point out how many of these guys are no longer with us, but it's because it's kind of depressing once you start going through it and just realizing just how many we've lost over the years, especially at some a chunk of these really young ages. Like I'm older than those guys were when they passed. So that's nuts to think about. But here's another one. Beautiful Bobby. Weighs 230 from Huntsville, Alabama. So he's got the Alabama Jam, a leg drop from the top rope. I like how they explain what that's supposed to be. Titles held. And then we get just a little bit of bio on him. One of the greatest achievements in my career was wearing the World Tag and U.S. Tag team belts simultaneously. Now he's a singles competitor. I've already proven my worth by capturing the World TV title, but I feel like I'm still a tag team wrestler. Why? Because I'm dealing with two opponents when I wrestle Stunning Steve. It's good for nothing but interfering valet Lady Blossom. Sorry, I couldn't remember her name earlier. I just remember Medusa. Blossom is no lady. She's well. This is a family magazine, so I'll keep my opinions to myself for now. Yeah, great wrestler. Bobby Eaton was a great wrestler. They would always, any newcomers coming in, anyone they were wanting to test the waters with to see how they were going to do. It seems most of the time they'd have a match with Bobby Eaton. From our ringside, there he is. Eli Conte. So Gary Michael Capetta was great, but I kind of prefer Dave Penzer a little bit. They're both awesome in their own way, but I think if I had a preference, I would go with Dave over Gary Michael Capetta. That was always annoying with their production, that when the announcers would start to go, like after Schiavone or Jim Ross would be like, all right, back to the ring, and it would cue in to the ring announcer, and you would hear them, but they sounded so far away, like you couldn't hear them well, and then they would drift in with the audio. I'm like, why did they even later into WCW still did the same thing? I never understood that, because WWF never really had a problem with that. Here we go. Nikita Koloff. At this point, he's still heel, so he would go on to turn face. I think not much longer after this. I was a big fan of Nikita Koloff face run as a kid, but once again, is that a case of me, the TV's putting him over so much that I'm gonna like him just because I'm a dumb kid? I don't know. Let's see. We got Gordon Soley talking about some stuff, giving him his little bit. It says Gordon Soley remembers. So he's been an expert in the sport since 1959. Soley wouldn't be around too much longer after this either. Him and Jim Ross would do some stuff, and then Sully would I think he would only come in for bigger events and do a little bit. And then I never really got to hear Gordon Sully as much on commentary. Oh, hey, look, photographic proof. Who could it be? That's definitely the Z-Man under there. But it's nice that they did that just to throw you off. Oh, did we ever get our answer? Yeah, there it is. We're on page 17. Yeah, it's the Z-Man. All right, I got it right. I guessed the superstar correctly. Response to charges. What does Lady Blossom have to say about charges that she repeatedly interferes in her man Steve Austin's matches by clawing at opponents' eyes? Ridiculous. It's total farce. We got a Ross report, which he would keep the name of for not only like this and the hotline, but when he would go to WWF and did their hotline, and I want to say maybe even the magazine as well, he had a Ross report. Pretty sure he did. So much is happening in WCW, it's difficult to choose one thing about which to write. There we go. Instead, I'll use this space to comment on several topics. So this is hype you up for Halloween Havoc, more or less, because there's a match that's one of the worst matches probably in most people's minds in WCW history, and you'll know that when we get to the back cover of this issue. And then, of course, Schiavone talks. Here's Sabisco playing golf with Larry Sabisco. What you see is what you get. The man in the ring is the same as the man in real life. I say this because I know him. He's probably a better analyst of the sport than any wrestling announcer alive. Not only do we commentate together, but for reasons which are still unclear to me, we have become regular golfing partners. So, yeah, Sabisco in the twilight of his career goes on, and he calls nitros and thunders and pay-per-views over the rest of the decade. He always seemed like an asshole to me, but apparently he's pretty great. Hear Me Out with Ron Simmons. So he broke into the sport in 96. Of course, we know him, Florida State Seminoles. I think he's in their Hall of Fame. Got inducted at some point. Was it early 2000s? Maybe. Of course, I mentioned before, he beats Vader in 93 to win the title, which was pretty awesome. Even if you go back and watch it now and hear the pops for that, it'll give you goosebumps. What else? Is he just talk about football? And he's a member of Doom. Doom ruled. I loved him with Butch Reed. They were an awesome tag team. I think it's like the matches with them and the Steiners and just other big beefy guy tag team matches. They all beat the shit out of each other. I always love those because Ron Simmons worked a little snug from the looks of it. I've seen him beat up quite a few guys on WWF TV, and some of that shit looked nasty, especially his Dominator move on the smaller guys too. He would just flip them down and look brutal. He's talking about those days are behind me now. His priorities back to where they always should have been. So with Doom, he's a heel here, face turn. Lex and I were teammates on the Tampa Bay Bandits in the old USFL. He always stuck for me as a man who would stick up for himself, fight his own battles. That's why I can't believe he needs a guy like Harley Race as his advisor, or a man like Mr. Hughes in his corner. So once again, hyping up more Halloween Havoc to come later this month. What we got? That was a good shot of him and Lex. Always liked Ron Simmons, though. It sucked when he got saddled with the original incarnation of the Farouk gimmick. He's just like that gladiator. That was awful. Hidden nicknames. I'll put this up there in case. Zooming out just a little bit. So there you go. You get there's the nicknames. There's the puzzle if you want to pause this and try to find them all. Feel free to. Well, we got Wildfire, Z-Man. Yeah. So beautiful, beautiful Bobby. Dangerous. Like, I was going to say Paul E, but it would be Dangerously and not. Maybe Dangerous. Was it Dan Spivey? I don't know. Dogface Gremlin, of course, Rick Steiner. Enforcer, Arn Anderson, Flying Brian, Natural. Dustin Rose. Who was Peanut? Who had the nickname Peanut Head? purely sexy rap master, it'd have to be PN News, Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff, Stinger, Stunning Steve, the Lariat. What's the Lariat? Was Stan Hansen in the company at this time? Total Package, Wildfire. I already mentioned that. Armbar. All right, so did you miss our first issue? Oh, okay, so this was the rebranding first time, so that's why they had that section where everyone was blowing smoke. It's like, oh, this is so great. So I have to check back and see what this looked like prior to the November 91. PN News versus One Man Gang. One Man Gang bounced around quite a bit. Saw One Man Gang actually probably more so in WCW than anywhere else. But yeah, we get Yo Baby, Yo Baby, Yo. We get PN News. I'm sure these matches were 5-star classics. I don't read any of that stuff because PN News, cool as a kid, not so much now. Actually, let's look up PN News. Let's see how long PN News hung in to WCW. I don't really think he went anywhere else after this. Retired in 2016. Okay, so hung out for a while. Was only in WCW from 91 through 92. Catch Wrestling Association from 92 to 98. Where's this at? CWA. Oh, Austria and Germany. All right. Interesting. And then British Wrestling from 93 to 2016. Had a very small stint, like most wrestlers did, in ECW in 1999, which I don't remember. Debuted in a losing effort to Spike Dudley in September. I was watching ECW at this time. PN News joined DeBaldi's. November to Remember 99, DeBaldi's, PN News, Spanish Angel, Tony DeVito, and Vito, who would go to WCW and be Big Vito, defeated New Jack and the hardcore chair swinging freaks, Axelrod and Balls Mahoney, in a handicap match. And then News lost to them in a loser leaves town match. Huh, interesting. So stuck around pretty much in Europe after that, after ECW. That's really weird. The PN News just stayed over there for so long and didn't try to come back. Nostalgia run. I like, honestly, with this size and everything, I'm kind of surprised that Vince didn't want to scoop him up and try to mold him and make something out of him. Kind of blue collar job gimmick could he have given PN News? There's Terry Runnels. So here's 10 questions for Alexandra York. The Foundation has quite the group of wrestlers, but do you still wish you'd been able to add Dustin Rhodes? So I think around this time they had started dating and would shortly get married not long after this, or they were already married here. Not entirely sure. How much money do you get for selling Mr. Hughes' contract to Lex Luger? I miss managers. You get a little bit these days. We have Don Callis in AEW. We have, of course, Paul Heyman. We need more because male, female, Miss Elizabeth, Alexander York, Paulie Dangerously, Bobby Heenan, Slick. There's so many. Sherry Martel, a woman. Now I'm like Tyler, just listing off all this stuff. But there were just so many men and women managers for everybody at the time on the rosters. It's kind of a lost art. Need to bring that back. Terry looking pretty sexy back then. I'm gonna lie. We won't go through all of her questions at all. It's just more of well, let's see if there's anything that really sticks out. Every male fan of WCW is waiting for you to take off your glasses and let down your hair. When will you do so? If that's all the typical WCW fan can think of, I pity him. Terrence, Richard, and Thomas have risen above such infantile wishes to become the successes that they are. They respect me as a businesswoman, and I respect them as athletes. So even back then, male wrestling fans pretty horny for everything. What all do we got? How about stepping through the ropes yourself? They didn't do women's wrestling around this time, so I don't understand why they'd even had that as a question, really. That didn't become more of a thing until Medusa came back, and then they would have a little bit, and then that would quickly go away. WCW didn't. They never really messed with women's wrestling, and when they did, they didn't do it well most of the time. Here's a good question. What will the York Foundation look like in the year 2010? It is possible that there won't even be a York Foundation in the year 2010. Then again, it is possible that the York Foundation will be larger than IBM, Apple, Texas Instruments, and Wang combined. But no matter what the future holds, I'm certain I'll be involved in a successful venture. I'm equally certain that Terrence, Richard, and Thomas will by then have become the integral part of wrestling history. And I mean, if Terry Taylor's Red Rooster run was integral part of wrestling history, then, which I think did Red Rooster come before or after this? I gotta look that up, but I want to say it came after, right? Maybe I'm just sitting here talking to myself now. Let's see when this happened. Part of me was thinking that was an 80s gimmick, but now I'm not so sure. Because I want to say he was Terry Taylor in WWF for a stint, and then he went to WCW. No, so it was Red Rooster before, and then he came back as terrific Terry Taylor. Rough stuff. 2010. Yep, as big as IBM. Superstars super moves. Warning: the holds and maneuvers detailed in this special section should be left to professionals. Do not attempt these at home. So I'm sure the kids went and attempted these at home. We have the torture rack. I would find myself oftentimes in middle school stuck in this move from guys that were twice my size. They would just come up and pick me up. They wouldn't ask. Most of them didn't. Some of them would just go and try to grab you for a diamond cutter, but the bigger guys seeing a smaller guy pick me up, put me in the rack. Gotta tell you, it doesn't feel good. Especially when they start bouncing up and down. Not good at all. Bobby Eaton's Alabama Jam. So if you want to take your wrestling buddy, lay him on the floor, hop up on the couch cushion and jump and give a leg drop there in your living room, go ahead. I did plenty of times. And who didn't do this? Who didn't do a scorpion deathlock or a sharpshooter? I did this move plenty of times to my cousin, and he would cry, and I would get in trouble. Because if you put it on, and then, you just sit on their back, like really sit down on it, it hurts. Definitely hurts. Steiner line. Dished out a few of those back in my backyard wrestling days. And, of course, the Frankensteiner, which I'm sure if a kid attempted to do that, they probably broke their neck. Oh, man. Look how badass they look. And it's funny how Braun Breaker today, he sounds more like Scott than his own dad. But he looks just like him. Looks just like Rick. And his terrible tattoos. Look at that. It's like, what is that? I see it's like a soldier machine gun, but I can't. That face just looks gnarly. And then you got the dogs there. Yes, Dustin Rhodes Bulldog. That was also something I would do to my wrestling buddy or my cousin if he would let me. Yeah, Frankensteiners. If you go and watch some of those WCW Frankensteiners he would pull off, right on top of their head. Never good. Elegante's claw hold, because what else can he do? That's about the extent of it. Giant Gonzalez. One Man Gang's 747 Splash. So obviously named after after Planes, because I in my mind I'm thinking 747 and he's doing flippy stuff. Dog the Bounty Hunter tat, yeah. I mean, that's honestly kind of, let's go back. Honestly, kind of what it looks like to a degree. Johnny B. Bad, aka go on to be Wildman Mark Marrow, and then just be Mark Marrow, and then his wife Sable would get more over than him, and then she would powerbomb him, and Stone Cold would be like, I'm not working with him in this program because she already did that to him. Where's his credibility? So that kind of ruined his career. But Johnny B. Bad was always an interesting character as a kid because you have to, let's see if there's a better, yeah. It's kind of like Little Richard is what the gimmick is sort of based off of, because he would be like, look at me, I'm so pretty. And then he'd do like, woo, and he would woo all the time like that. And he would have like this blaster cannon that would shoot confetti and everything. And the character at the time, you look at it like that, and you're already, the gears are starting to turn in your mind of like sexual orientation and the like. It was very odd for me as a kid anytime Johnny B. Bad would come out, but I mean, the crowd loved him. He got over with me, but still, initial first impressions of him is just like, huh, that's odd compared to all these other characters that I'm seeing, but he made it work. And if I'm not mistaken, was when he was hired into WWF, it was more like Vince was wanting, and I may get wires crossed here, I think they brought him in and was like, well, expect this. And I guess he just couldn't do, it took him a minute to work in a way that wasn't just that he's Johnny B. Bad. It's either that or they wanted him to be Johnny B. Bad, and he didn't want to do that. He wanted to be like just himself. But his finisher in WWF was pretty nice. I don't remember what it was here in WCW. Yeah, but just put the big lips on there. Teddy Long, of course, was or Theodore Long, sorry, was his manager. It's Mr. Hughes, so it's Lex, new advisor, new attitude, new title. Get Lex and Harley Race, which I think this is a fantastic pairing because Luger was never the best promo. So having someone the caliber of Harley Race be there to be his manager and cut his promos for him or do a lot of the heavy lifting of it was a smart move. Same thing when you would pair Harley Race with Vader. Like Vader, very menacing, good build. Promos, other than like yelling some stuff and everything, like do that a little bit, but let Harley kind of steer the ship with the promos. So really liked Harley looking back at it around this time. Good stuff seeing him transition from that long in-ring career that he had into being a manager because he was always a good promo. I like too how this article is, we got the ripped page aesthetic through this. That's pretty nice. Of course, Luger and Sting, their on again, off again friendship would be tested around this time. You get it's like Super Brawl 2, I think, him and Luger. Then of course with Luger going to WWF, and then he comes back, and then you play into Sting's friendship some more. That would lead into all the NWO stuff. Luger would probably go on to have the best run, I think, of his career in ¡97 when he beat Hogan. And I don't know why after that they had him join the Wolfpack and turned him heel, and none of that stuff ever quite worked out. But for me, '97 I think was peak Luger. The narcissist gimmick fit his personality when he was in WWF, but didn't quite pan out there. And of course, the Lex Express stuff. Less said about that, the better. But hey, he's in the Hall of Fame now, and he's more than earned it. With Luger around this time, I don't, because he goes to WWF not long after this too, to become the narcissist. So a lot of his early WCW stuff I watched well after the fact, and he definitely needed Harley Race as a mouthpiece. Probably needed that too when he was doing his Lex Express stuff. That probably would have helped out a little bit more because he was just never that great of a promo. And I'm trying to remember too if this may have also been around the time. You kind of see it there that they took the mats away from outside, so it's just exposed concrete. And I also want to say around this time they started implementing the going over the top rope, either throwing someone over or close. I think it was mostly throwing them over the top rope was a DQ, and you couldn't go off the top rope either, which that really weighed down this light heavyweight division that they were trying to build too. Is like, these guys can't jump off the top rope and they have to go from the middle. Doesn't look as impressive. Arn Anderson and Larry Sabisco, the rules to rule breaking. Tully wasn't around anymore. Flair had already gone off to the WWF. So the pairing of Anderson and Sabisco I always found quite interesting. Two really good workers, but them as a tag team, they've had better partners, just my opinion. So we get all of this. The P is for pile driver, a favorite weapon of Sabisco's. Q is for quintessence. Don't know that word. Sorry, I'm kind of a moron. R is for rule book. S is for stalling. T is for teamwork. U is for unity. V is for vertical suplex. Okay. It's just really odd. Like Y is for yellow streak. Z is for Larry Sabisco. Like, they're grasping for straws there. Third degree was Scott Steiner. For months, Scott Steiner, who with his brother Rick was in the midst of a second world tag team title reign, was looking for a way to return to his hometown of Detroit for a bit of rest and relaxation. Scott finally made it back to Motown. It's driving him crazy. June 18th, Scott underwent 2 hours of major surgery. Oh, James Andrews did this. So that's interesting, because James Andrews, I didn't come to know by name until WWF, because they would send a lot of their guys there to go get neck surgery. So I didn't even know he was doing all this stuff for wrestlers all the way back in 1991. But world famous sports injury specialist. So maybe they plugged him a little bit on TV, and I just don't remember it back then. But performed operations on Sting, Magnum TA, Bo Jackson. So I'm assuming it was they said, left bicep. Yeah, that'll do it. Waiting is the hardest part for Scott. WCW made things worse. July, they announced Rick and Scott had been stripped of their world tag titles because they couldn't defend them in the required 30-day period, which you could stretch the rules on that with him being hurt like that. Yeah, makes sense. Either that or get Rick another tag partner. They could have done that. They still retain their IWGP tag straps. So they spoke to Scott. How do you feel about this asshole being tag teaming with your brother? Well, I don't like it that much. Oh, so this is when Dirty Dick Slater and Murdoch were feuding with him. Ah, yes. So I think they'd go through that, and then the Steiners would jump over to WWF for, 92, 93? Or 93 into 94, and then they would go to Japan for a minute and then come back. Now there he is with his brace. Sweet-ass shirt. Always liked Scott. I think around this time period, like, he honestly, legitimately could have been a main eventer. He had the body. His moveset was awesome. His promo, like, not the greatest. He would become very funny later on as Big Papa Pump, but he easily could have fit in that slot too and hung with those guys like Simmons and Luger. He could have been challenging for the title. That would have been awesome to see the big gold, even though they weren't using it around this time, but the big gold belt would have looked really nice around his waist. You see that what actually happened is a torn bicep tendon, which actually broke the bicep away from the bone. When it first happened, I felt it pop. And the pain was bad, real bad. I almost want to do pop a pump here. But I didn't know how bad it was until I went to the hospital. Yeah, that's an injury that'll keep you out for quite some time. What else we got? Sometime in October, he hopes. I don't know when he came back. That's usually what, like a 6 to 9 month injury. May have been longer back then. I don't know. By the time I come back, I mean, look, dude, he had it all. But he stuck in a tag team with his brother for a long time. So kudos to him. Which is strange, too, because Rick was in the stable with Sullivan and Rotunda, the varsity club, before Scott was even like in here. And then they started tagging. So he could have just come in and been a singles guy. Out and about with the Natural, he goes to San Antonio so we can remember the Alamo. Yeah, look at that. Yeah. It's crazy that he's still wrestling after all this time. Though I think he's about to retire soon enough too. He might still be Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion with Sammy Guevara, the 6-man. Ring of Honor Tag Champ with Sammy, and then the 6-man with those Von Erich kids. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't looked at Ring of Honor champions in a while, so I couldn't tell you. So, yeah, there he is. There's Cody's brother hanging out at the Alamo. There he is on a horse. Looks very much like the stables that I see around here in the area when I go to a particular flea market. The Natural is more than a tremendous athlete. He's also a student of Texas history. His theme song back then was pretty catchy. It was on the WCW album. I recommend you all go check it out. I think it's just called The Natural. It's like WCW Slam Jam, I think is the name of the record. Just look up his track and listen to it. It's something else. There he is looking at cowboy boots. Cowboy Museum. Here's our championship challenge. So you can fill in all this if you want. Put that up for all of you at home. Pause it. Copy it. Do your own puzzle. Here's the merchandise. I'm excited about this part because I always wanted to get some of this stuff. There's a guy, it might be the WCW Worldwide guy. He's recreated this Sting shirt multiple times. And I think it says even right there, much like it says on this one, Fatal Encounter. Like, look how I would wear the shit out of that now. Looks great. Get you some buttons here. Get the flex with Lex. So there you go. WCW belts, hats, shirts. Get you a Lex Luger jacket. I always wanted the Sting jacket too. Not gonna lie. Which was the stuff? No, I have a price right here. Probably on the next page. Yeah, there we go. What we got? Sting button. I mean, $2. That's not bad. How much is the jacket? $44.95 for the jacket. That is a steal. Get the cup. Multiple shirts. Those Sting shirts aren't as great as that other one. Oh yeah. My dad painted my face. I think we actually probably just used the merchandise catalog insert here in one of the magazines that I had, and he painted my face. I think maybe it was this design that we used. I did it for Halloween one year. I don't know if there's any pictures of that. I don't think that there is. If there may be one, if there is, I'll try to track it down and get it so we can share it. But yeah, I was Sting one year for Halloween, but it was cold, so I wasn't gonna go around shirtless. So it was just me. It's just me in face paint. I'm wearing like a windbreaker, which I guess would have worked. It's like, hey, it's like Sting doing a backstage interview or something. He's not in his gear. Get a York Foundation shirt. A lot of Sting and Luger. A lot. Z-Man. So what, we had Steiner Brothers, right? Did they? Yeah, they got a shirt. Everything else is like Luger and Sting. Oh, they got a sweatshirt too. And there's some more Steiner Brothers gear. You get the Freebirds, Dustin Rhodes. Get a Big Josh shirt. Hell yeah, Flying Brian. Bad Street USA. There's PN News. Yo, baby, yo. Yeah, the black also looks really good on that Sting shirt. The Fatal Encounter. Get you a Z-Man poster. How about that? Gosh. And those prices, man. $5 for a poster. That's not bad at all. I love it. T-shirts are only $15. Man, that rules. That Steiner Brothers shirt's really cool too. Since the Michigan, they're wearing their Letterman's jackets and everything. Then, of course, yeah. I'm missing Butch Reed and Brian Pillman from at least here in the States, because I know over in the UK they got a couple other extra figures in the line. But I got the ring, and I have most of the line. Now the ring and some of the figures got paint scuff marks because this is stuff I actually played with. I know on other shows when Tyler and I would talk about action figures that we had as kids, most of the time I would set them on the shelf and just kind of admire them and display. But with these, I actually played with these. In the top rope here, you could set a guy up on it and hit this lever, and it would shoot him off the ropes, off the top rope. So you do like a splash. No articulation in these guys either. So the way that Galoob molded them, it's the way that you had to work with them. So like down here with Sting, these guys pose like that. So I would usually do suplexes with Sting. When you have Lex Luger, and I think Arn Anderson was kind of similar, but more so with Lex, the way his arms are shaped, DDTs all day, every day. It's probably the same thing with Ron Simmons, be like suplexes and stuff. So there's not a lot you can do with them. Throw some drop kicks, even with guys that never did it. VHS tape. So yeah, Collision Course, Sting versus the Black Scorpion. This was a tape that I rented as a kid, and Black Scorpion, of course, turns out to be Ric Flair. But the lead up to that goofy shit, I kind of love it, but it's bad. Bend'em, little bendies action. I never had any bendable WCW figures, actually. I do remember seeing them, but I never had any of these. But, oh boy, did I have some WCW trading cards. Particularly this set right here with the purple packaging is the ones that probably still have. They might actually be in a binder down in the basement. I have to check. The video game that we have here, only $45, but I don't remember Sting being on the cover of this. I always thought it was the Road Warriors. So I don't know if this label changed over time, but I don't think that it did. And then, of course, still have it somewhere. What did they call these guys? Wrestling champs. So they're not wrestling buddies or wrestling champs, but I had Sting. And I would wrestle him in the living room and give him leg drops and DDTs and suplexes, and body slams, splashes. Sometimes I'd put him over and let him win. There you go. If you want to make your check payable to WCW and tell them that you want a Z-Man poster, here you go. Here's the calendar to tell you where they're going to be showing up. So they make sure to highlight that this will be a TV taping, and the rest of these are house shows. So September, Charlottesville, Virginia, University Hall. So and that was the difference too between WCW and WWF. WCW always ran the smaller venues, and that's why we would get more WCW shows around here than WWF really didn't come around here until the late 90s most of the time. They very rarely did house shows here because where I'm from, it was WCW wrestling, as most people refer to it in the South. Greensboro, of course, they would run the Greensboro Coliseum. The Civic Auditorium in Knoxville. Baltimore Arena, which is where they would have the Bash. And then occasionally they would go up north, but as you kind of see here, they stuck mostly to the south and central bits of the states. Calendar close up, so Bash may be over. We got our cards. Halloween Havoc's going to be UTC Arena in Chattanooga, and Scott Steiner might be there. So get a ticket if you want him to possibly see Scott Steiner. Probably Dangerously here with his Danger Zone. Here's young Paul Heyman, which I hated him as a kid because I was supposed to, but you go back and you watch that, and it's brilliant stuff. I've always liked him. I don't want to speak too much for his current run because it got pretty stale with Brock there for a while, but his WCW stuff, and then of course running ECW for as long as he did, I loved that. I think I loved him because of that. Having ECW around is just that third big national brand. But granted, I didn't work for him either, so I'm sure people, as you've seen, have varying opinions of Paul. And most of that lies in if you're check bounced or not. In your opinion, Cactus Jack, in my opinion, Cactus Jack is a psychotic. What do you think? Joe, I'm not sure I go as far to say Cactus Jack is, in a clinical sense, psychotic, but prior to recent Danger Zone television taping with him, I asked Cactus what he thought of the movie The Silence of the Lambs. He said he didn't think it was as funny as the book. Draw your own conclusions. Hey, Paul, have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror? What a geek. The worst thing about you is that stupid ponytail. You look like my kid's sister with that idiotic hair. What a wuss. Hey, Tiny Tony, I'll give you $5 to write that same letters to Steven Seagal. Oh, boy. I watch you on television every week, and I think you're great. Please continue your excellent analysis. Although you posed no question in your letter, I liked it so much. I wanted all of our readers to see the people of New York do indeed have a higher level of intelligence than the people in the rest of the country. When you say something nice about the Patriots when they defeat the Enforcers. So, yeah, just good, smart-ass responses from Paul. Our parting shot, Missy Hyatt screeches in surprise and shock in the midst of a shower. She's interrupted by WCW Magazine's adventurous photographer who's had the presence of mind to snap this photo before ducking a flying hairbrush and fleeing the locker room. I don't remember her with dark hair around this time. I always remember her as being a blonde like she was earlier in the magazine. So Missy would go on to be photographed in the nude later on in the 90s for what was it, Wrestling Vixens, I think was the name of the website. And she brought Sunny, Tammy Lynn Sitch to do some stuff. I don't know what Missy's up to. I think she still shows up to conventions and comments on current wrestling events of the time period. And then, of course, hey, if you want to save on your subscription, there you go, 33%. Making sure I'm still alive here. And then there we are. There's Halloween Havoc. Here's the back page of the magazine. And we get our Chamber of Horrors match, which here is the original advertised matchup. So we have Elegante, Sting, the Steiners versus the Outsiders, One Man Gang, and Barry Windham. And this got changed a multitude of times to, let me look it up because Cactus Jack ended up being in this match. Unless they did it multiple times, which I think after this, that was it. So it still remained with Sting and the Steiners and Elegante here on the left, but Diamond Stud is the only one that remained on the other side of that. Instead, it would be Abdullah the Butcher, Cactus Jack, and Vader, which that's much better of a team than Oz, One Man Gang, Barry Windham, and the Diamond Stud. Man, Big Josh and PN News defeat the Creatures in a tag match. What else? So it's just these two things that are advertised. All right. Bobby Eaton would defeat Terry Taylor. Johnny B. Bad would defeat Jimmy Garvin. Stunning Steve would retain his television championship versus Dustin Rhodes. It would end in a time limit draw. Bill Kazmaier defeated Oz by submission, so maybe Oz would have preferred to have been in the Chamber of Horrors match. Van Hammer defeated Doug Somers, Somers. Somers. Brian Pillman defeated Ricky Morton for the light heavyweight championship in the tournament final. The Halloween Phantom defeated the Z-Man, and the Halloween Phantom would be Rick Rude. The Enforcers, Arn Anderson and Sabisco, would retain the tag titles against the Patriots, Todd Champion and Fire Chip. And then Lex Luger would defeat Ron Simmons in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the heavyweight championship. And to give you an idea of how this light heavyweight tournament kind of panned out, so Brian Pillman got a bye in the first round. Bad Street defeated Joey Maggs. So Bad Street was Brad Armstrong. Had to look that up. Mike Graham would defeat Terry Taylor. And then Ricky Morton would defeat Johnny Rich. Oh, Johnny Rich, I don't remember it all. Ricky Morton would defeat Mike Graham. Brian Pillman would defeat Brad Armstrong, even though they would go to feud later. And then Brian Pillman, of course, would have been here at Halloween Havoc. So make sure to tune in, as I already gave you the spoilers, on Sunday, October 27th from 7 to 10, live on pay-per-view. Viewer's choice. Oh, wait, let's see. Available on Viewer's Choice and Request Television. Call your local cable operator for availability. Or just do like I did and go over to family members' houses who would get every pay-per-view, or borrow the tape that they recorded of said pay-per-view later on in the week to watch your shows. So that'll do it. Put it up there. Hope everyone kind of enjoyed that little bit of going back to WCW in 1991. Like I said before, I know professional wrestling is not for everyone that consumes the content that we put here on the Dump Bin and on the Fans Power channel. But hey, I'm going to do wrestling stuff every now and again. James will be on here. Tyler will join me. We'll probably watch one of those WWF wrestling tapes on YouTube and just hang out and comment on the matches and comment on any botches or any indiscrepancies that we see during the match. And maybe laugh at some of the commentary, depending who's on it. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like this video and comment down below. Give me your thoughts on WCW. Go check out James on Serial Geek TV and go subscribe to Fans of Power if you haven't done so already. And until next time, we'll see you later. I totally forgot to do my little stinger thing for my thanks for watching. Damn it.